Hello and welcome to Business India with me Tarun. Energy trade and investment between India and Russia is set to take off as Russia not only is actively looking at India to supply crude oil and gas supplies but has welcomed increased investments from India not only in oil fields but also coal fields. ONGC Videsh is exploring the opportunity to acquire 49% stake in Russian oil producers Rosneft oil company's Tagul oil field, while Rosneft is looking to acquire a significant stake in SR Oil in India and also supply 10 million tons of crude oil to its Vadinagar refinery in Gujarat. Under deal signed with Rosneft CEO Igor Sechin, Indian companies will raise stake in Vankor oil field to 50% and buy 30% in Tas Urak oil field. Is the India-Russia energy partnership ready for takeoff? Joining me on the discussion are Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar, Ambassador Skan Tayal, and energy expert Naren Taneja also joined us. I'm going across to Ambassador Sajanhar for his opening comment on all these developments that are happening in the energy sector between India and Russia.
I think energy, and particularly you mentioned hydrocarbons. We have not spoken, you didn't mention nuclear energy, but definitely hydrocarbons is one area where we can really take off as far as our relations between India and Russia are concerned. And why do I say that? If you look at the trajectory of our experience so far, 2001 was the investment 20% that we had invested, about $2.1 billion. That turned out to be a very promising investment and very profitable investment as far as meeting our energy needs, oil and gas is concerned. Second was 2009, $2.1 billion again for Imperial Energy.
Yes.
I think the Sakhalin one was maybe about $1.7 billion, that's right. And this was $2.1 billion. And that has not turned out because it was that acquisition was made right at the top when the prices of energy were very, very high. And immediately after that, we saw the international economic crisis, financial crisis, sovereign debt crisis, and after that energy prices have been low. And so we have been trying to sell off our stake in Imperial Energy, 100% that we had, and trying to deal with Sistema and buy some of the other in Basneft and some of the other areas. And then recently 15% in the second largest oil field, that is Vankor, yes, part of Rosneft.
Yes.
I think that India has so far not been able to take full advantage of the pivot to Asia by Russia, because Russia has been forced to look at Asia after Ukraine, after Crimea, after the imposition of sanctions by Europe and by the United States. So that Europe, which was the big market, the huge market for Russia's energy, and we also need to keep in mind that as far as Russia, it's basically a commodity producing nation. It's a commodity producing country, producing and selling energy. And Europe was the big profitable market. So that is the producer, that was the market.
In fact,
after that,
to make before I go across to our other panelists, that Putin did his PhD in energy production.
That's right.
That's what he learned, and how to be hegemony and all.
Absolutely. So my last comment here would be that the biggest beneficiary of Putin's pivot to Asia has been China.
Yes. Because
China is also an energy deficient country, and China has tried, whether it is the $400 billion gas deal or oil pipelines, etc. They have benefited. We have not benefited, so it is not.
Benefit. I'm going across to Mr. Naren Taneja. Mr. Taneja, your opening comment.
Well, I think, you know, our companies have tried their level best, both the public sector and the public sector. Private sector companies also have looked at Russia very carefully, but they really were not very successful because there were a number of issues which they probably they didn't get the positive response from Moscow. But at the same time, let's understand, when a Russian company comes and buy into SR refinery, try to understand why they have done it. They have done it to secure supply. They are looking for secure markets. So by investing in a refinery, they have secured the supply, or they have secured the demand for oil back home in Russia. and at the same time a market in India, and also export market in Africa and the Middle East. So I mean, this is what I'm talking about, the new Russia. We are seeing the emergence of the new Russia, and at the same time, you see our company, though fully supported and backed by Indian government, Ministry of External Affairs, is still, when they sit down for negotiations, you find that, you know, other things simply evaporate, and hardcore business is basically you have to negotiate like you would negotiate with any other country. And that's the reason that there are at least 2 more projects which Indian oil companies are interested in to invest, but they're not able to make much progress, including a couple of projects in the Arctic region. Well, there are some commercial consideration as well these days, because the oil prices have come down, natural gas prices have come down. And let's not forget one thing when we talk about China. China has a long border with Russia. We don't have a border with Russia. So that becomes a major obstacle when it comes to bringing oil or natural gas from Russia physically into India. I mean, there are challenges, but we still buy a lot of oil from Russia. But let's not forget one thing: if Russia is still offers us some better deals, secure deals, Indian companies are by all means ready to go there and buy from there. Same goes for natural gas. We are, after all, importing natural gas, or going to import from the United States of America. We can bring it from Russia also. But as I said, again, emotions apart, goodwill apart, at the end of the day, it's just business. And that's what we got to understand when it comes to India-Russia business relationship, energy relationship in 2016 and beyond. Other thing is that I personally feel that it would actually help it will help us, for instance, if Russian companies come and invest in hydrocarbon sector in India, in coal sector in India, in mining sector in India, steel sector in India. I mean, these sectors are open. I mean, in many area like oil and gas is 100% open for foreign investment. They don't even need to go to any government office. It's more or less on automatic routes. So they can come. We don't see much signs of that.
But I take your point. I'm going to Ambassador Tayal at this moment. Ambassador Tayal, what I'm going to ask you is about Russia's changing mood or changing stance. Until they were the toast of town, say until the sanctions, got the grip of them, or they were under the grip of the sanctions, investments were flowing into Russia in the field of oil and gas, and they were really not that keen for us in a trade or a energy partnership as far as crude was concerned, because Indians didn't have that technology that could do drilling in Arctic. For them, they had to go to the Americans or the Europeans. Now, because of the sanctions, do you think that Russian interest is also there now only because of the sanctions, that now they are looking at newer markets, and India is a big energy consumer?
It is, on long term, India will be one of the largest energy consumers and importers after maybe China and Japan. But now is the more sort of normal times. Energy price is low, so investors are also cautious. If they do projections long term, the solar energy may come, nuclear energy is growing. So some major investors from the West, sanctions is one point, but also they do not perhaps see energy as a long term very profitable investment. Those investors who want to exit after 10 years or so. Now, in this situation, it is India will be very wise to invest in Russian energy market, because it's a normal market. It is not that a lot of investors are rushing in, and there's a lot of competition, and Russia could dictate terms. For instance, ambassador was ambassador in Kazakhstan, and Kazakhstan was always able to play one investor against the other. So this is a good time for Indian investors, Indian companies to work a normal business deal with the Russians. Also, the LNG, there was a report that 2.5 million tons per year that agreement has been signed between Gazprom and GAIL. So whether it will be ultimately swap, or it will that hydrocarbons will come from Russia to India, that I am not sure how that will happen. But this is the right time for Indian companies and Russian companies to look at each other. India has great refining potential, and we export all over the place our refined petroleum products, and in coal we can invest in Russia, and Russians can invest in India in refinery, like in SR they have already done. So there is demand in India, refining capacity, a lot of it in India, and ultimately gas and oil is in Russia. They have this very long and very interesting deal with China, but I believe it has
That's
not been
working
fully
out, is
signed.
what I hear.
Yes, it is not because of
I'm
pricing,
gonna-
because of pricing issues. It is not.
Ambassador, I'll go across to Ambassador Sajan. I mean, there was a huge talk about this $40 billion deal of gas supply. There were issues on who is going to even build those gas pipes, who's going to bear the expenditure. The Russians said that, okay, look, if you want the gas, you build the gas pipeline. The Chinese said that we will only build the gas pipelines within our borders. Within your borders, you build. The Russians said, no, I mean, nothing doing, you want, you build. So, I mean, these are the basic differences that whether do you think that, you know, it's okay, Russia can do business with India, but with China, they are again on a hard negotiating table with a nation that it is wary of. I mean, it is said by experts that Russia is wary of China, not of India. Of course, India is a... How do you see this whole axis?
You know, then there are two dimensions you have brought into it. One is the strategic dimension in terms of Russia-China relations. And I think that is a very important subject that we need to discuss at some stage.
Yes.
And see, because, you know, right now, Russia has really been pushed into the lap of China by the West, by the Americans. And frankly, my conversations with some of the Western interlocutors appear to suggest to me that they themselves did not think that the sanctions would have such an impact that it would make Russia so completely dependent upon China, so that in every area that you see, Russia is out there supporting whatever China, because China has become much more assertive, China has become much more belligerent in dealing with its neighbors and so on and so forth. But, as Mr. Taneja said, there is a long border that they share. And that, while providing some benefits.
To talk of geopolitics, they
Yes.
say they fear that Siberia may just go away China's way.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's
In terms of the numbers that are there,
Yes.
so while it is an advantage, it's also a huge disadvantage. Because
Disadvantage.
it's also a security issue. But coming back to, you know, more of the business aspects, I think it is very important what Ambassador Tayal has mentioned, that this is the time, this is the right time. Our requirement of energy is going to increase, and irrespective of the fact that we might have increased our production targets from 20 gigawatt in solar energy to 100 gigawatts by in another 5 years, of renewable energy to 175 gigawatts by 2030, you know, under the sustainable development goals, we have said that 40% of our energy requirement will be met from non-fossil fuel sources.
Yes.
We might have said all that, but that having been said, the rate at which our economy is growing and which we hope will continue to grow at an even faster pace, our need of energy will continue to soar.
Okay.
And if that happens, our requirement of coal and gas and oil will continue to increase.
So you mean
I think
this is a perfect marriage? At least
absolutely, this is a perfect marriage.
Okay, I'm going across to Mr. Taneja. Yes, Mr. Taneja, how do you look at this emerging relationship in the energy sector?
Well, I think you know, India and Russia are made for each other when it comes to hydrocarbon and fossil fuels rather. I mean, you know, oil will remain central to us for next 35 years at least, and our dependence on imported oil is going to go up to 91% very soon. And Russia, of course, since we know the country, and they've got huge reserves of oil. So I think we should now we should change the narrative, try to bring in fresh ideas, and at the same time develop and strengthen this relationship in such a way that is a win-win for both, for Russia as well as for India. Second, natural gas. We are moving into the era of natural gas, and natural gas will become a central source of energy for us for the next 67 years. Despite the progress we will make in renewables, natural gas will remain central. And where else you find more
Mr.
natural
Taneja,
gas than Russia? Now the question is that we got to think out of the box. We got to just a second. Let me just say, we also need to explore, can we build a gas pipeline from Russia into India via Afghanistan, Pakistan, or via Western China? Third thing is that, you know, we need to build at least 3 more refineries and at least 6 more LNG terminals. And to me, it looks like if we and Russia can join hands and sit down across the table, work out a win-win map, I think this is a relationship made for future. And this is a relationship which will not only bring India and Russia closer, will actually deliver tremendous benefits to both the people of the two countries. We can also take it forward to Africa, which is actually the next big business destination for the whole world.
Mr. Taneja, the absence of a corridor to transport, say, crude, like a pipeline, do you think what kind of a nightmare is it to build? Because you see that has been an impediment to crude ties or energy ties. How do you see that happening, or do you think that's difficult to happen?
No, I think oil pipeline is not really required. What we can build is oil. We can use the conventional way. There's the old tankers. Tankers don't cost so much to construct, up $30 to $40 million each vessel. But when it comes to LNG ships, they cost $250 million each ship, or if not more. So I think it is for natural gas. We should build pipelines, and natural, as we said, we are moving to the natural gas based economy. And in China and Western China, they have huge shale gas reserves. They also have conventional, gas reserves there. So we got to kind of say, all right, let's have politics is one thing. Let's keep the politics aside. Can India, China, Russia join hands in order to build this transnational, trans-Himalayan gas pipeline? Technologically, it is possible. We all three countries need to sit together and find a solution. I'm personally convinced that, if not today, maybe in 10 years from now, you will see these pipelines from Russia into India via Afghanistan, Pakistan over Western China would become a reality, and would deliver cheap and affordable, sustainable gas to India.
And your comment on Russia-China pipeline, it's not working out. Do you think their energy relations are going to work out? Because primarily the nation seems to be wary of each other. Yes.
Very simple answer, very simple answer. Russia-China gas pipeline was driven by politics and not by business. That's why it failed. Its economic fundamentals were wrong. They were not factored in. And once they factored that thing in, they realized that was not sustainable. So when it comes to business of oil and gas and coal, let businessmen, let economists lead it, and politicians and diplomats can only facilitate it. The way of some people still look at it in an old-fashioned way. I think if you do that, you do it at your own risk. We should not do that. It's a new era, it's a new Russia, it's a new India. 2016 onward is a new world. So we must look at this with more pragmatic and with keeping commercial consideration, economic fundamentals at the very forefront.
Okay, I'm going across to Ambassador Tayan. Taking away, sir, from where Mr. Taneja left off. Mr. Taneja said that you should deal with business and business. Now, I want an ambassador's perspective, sir, into this issue. Is it only business when you talk of energy and sectors like that, or does strategy also play a part, or say strategic relations that we have, a defense relations also going play a part, or everything is dealt separately? Sir, could you throw some light on this?
I wish it could be only business and not so much of strategy and politics. But let us look at the possibilities of pipelines. We have huge demand for gas, and Russia has gas, Turkmenistan has gas, Kazakhstan has gas. How to get it to India? Now, I don't see any possibility of any gas pipeline coming through Afghanistan and Pakistan, because there are non-state actors operating both in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And even if the governments of the 3, 4, 5 countries involved decide to have a pipeline, it will not happen. But there is certainly a possibility that if India, China and Russia come together, they can definitely have a pipeline, and perhaps it can become economical if that gas comes right up to India. And one must always look back at history, that even at the height of Cold War, Soviet gas was flowing to Western Europe uninterrupted, and there was a huge business because economy trumped strategy. But there were no non-state actors. What the Soviet government wanted, what the European governments wanted, that happened. But the Chinese will be in a position to do it, India will be in a position to do it, and Russia will also be in a position to do it. So if we can, this can be definitely an excellent example of BRICS coming together. In Goa, there is going to be a summit in October, and whatever may be our difficulties with China and politics and strategy, but this can be a separate, standalone project which has strategic value, but it will have great economic value, it will have great symbolism, and it can bring our three countries together.
Okay, I'm going across to Ambassador Sajanar for his take on this issue.
Well, there have been the construction of the Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India pipeline TAPI. That was launched on 13th of December last year, when the presidents of all these three countries and the Vice President of India, Mr. Hamid Ansari, they were there at the inauguration. Now, I know that there are several people in India and several analysts, commentators strategic experts who express doubts and reservations whether
Yes.
it will come to fruition.
Yes.
And I also, to a very significant extent, share their concern. But I know that we have got Russia involved in the construction of this pipeline from Turkmenistan. I have also been told by my interlocutors in Turkmenistan and in Afghanistan that for many years there has been a supply of gas and electricity from Turkmenistan to Afghanistan, and it has continued unimpeded and unaffected.
One
And
question I want to ask you, as you say,
Yes,
this is
yeah.
it's an extract from your article, which you was published widely in various websites and newspapers. It states on the hydrocarbon front, participation by India in exploration for oil, gas, and other minerals in Russia's Arctic shelf will help establish Delhi as a long-term player in Moscow's energy sector. Sir, there are two questions. One, does India have the technical capability to drill in Arctic, or do you think India's investments are more important? The technology can always come in from other players through Indian companies.
Absolutely. You know, that is what I had in mind,
Yes.
that India's engagement, India's involvement, whether it is through capital or it is through manpower, human resources, technology, whatever we can offer. And then we try to put together a consortium, because India is a big demander. India is in need of energy. So we go there and we invest there along with Russia. And you know, when there was this agreement with Sistema, Imperial OVL and Imperial Energy that we had acquired in 2009, and there were certain oil fields, Titov and Trebs in the Arctic shelf. And there is this discussion that India can go in and start exploring there to meet the demands in the Indian market. Of course, as Mr. Taneja said very rightly, you know, in terms of pipeline, how do you access that oil? But even from Sakhalin,
Yes.
since 2001, we have been getting oil, we have been getting gas, but we have been swapping them on the high seas.
Yes.
So I don't think that this is not really rocket science, and I'm sure he knows it better than most.
Okay.
That first you are able to get energy, oil. For instance, even when we have invested in Kazakhstan in the Satpayev block of Caspian Sea, and once that starts production,
Since we are almost
that
running out of
also-
time, sir, your closing comment for today's discussion.
I think I will second the comment made both by Mr. Taneja and also by Ambassador Tayal, that as far as hydrocarbons are concerned, India and Russia are made for each other.
That's a good
and
point.
we really need to take forward this partnership.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Taneja, as someone who also advises and heads the a sector on energy with the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, sir, what is your closing comment on this issue?
Well, my closing comment, Russia is a trusted friend, is a good friend. They are very blessed with oil and gas, and I think we should do whatever possible in order to bring our oil sector, gas sector, closer to Russian oil and gas sector. And let's not forget one thing, and I want to emphasize that you can never take politics out of energy. You can never take politics out of oil, gas, and nuclear. But having said that, at the same time, we should keep that in mind, but at the same time, we should let the people who know these things better, our oil and gas business leader, take the lead and help them and facilitate to the extent it is possible. But India and Russia, when it comes to energy, they are made by God for each other.
Okay, I am reminded of Daniel Yergin, and when I hear Mr. Taneja on at least these issues, I am going across to the Ambassador Tayal for his closing comment.
So India and Russia, earlier Soviet Union, we are old friends, partners in politics, but now is the time for us to become long-term partners in energy sector, whether it is nuclear energy, whether it is natural gas, whether it is oil, whether it is coal.
Okay. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us in today's discussion on Business India. So, as we see it, at least in the hydrocarbons, the India-Russia relationship is set for takeoff, as it not only looks for newer markets, but it also looks for increased investment in Russia in the energy sector. Now, how and when it happens, we'll track that for you on News World India. But thank you so much for joining us on today's discussion, gentlemen. Thank you.